Welcome to Tanakh Talk. I'm your host, William Hall, broadcasting live from Kingsland, Texas, USA, with another episode of Rabbi Tovia Singers. Let's get biblical Q&A with our sweet Rabbi Tovia, the man singer. How are you, sir? I thought I was going to miss you today, and apparently that was my comunicado. Good to see you. You look handsome as usual.
That goes without saying. I don't do anything.
Hey, you know, I got to say it again. I know we talk things in our conversations before the show, and it's funny. I need to start recording all of those just because it's a lot of fun. We should just do a show one time just to schmooze. You know, get like a lot of people on and have them just talking, just random stuff, just for like an hour. That'd be so awesome.
You're much more interesting off air. I don't know what happened, but off air you're great.
I think it's because when I go live, I get nervous. I think people think this.
Because
I know.
If you were just you could be another Rush. If you would just, if no one was telling you that there was a microphone on,
right?
That's how good you'd be.
Oh man, you're too kind. Well, very good. Well, so we really enjoyed your Purim picture. Your I don't know who said it, but somebody said they admired your Purim Catholic outfit. Oh yeah, man, that was really neat. Yeah, that was nice.
I got a lot of attention. That was a lot of fun. Yeah, I have to tell you, this city, Jerusalem, is hopping.
Nice.
If I tell you, it's lucky I'm in a bomb shelter. I mean, literally am.
Really? Wow.
But this place, this country is just hopping. I mean, you can practice Judaism in the United States or Europe, but you can only live it here.
No
it really
kidding.
is very, very exciting to be here. So I'm very, very fortunate. Yeah.
Well, I'm very happy for you. I'm so glad you made Aliyah. That's great. Oh. All right. Well, I guess we probably should get this bad boy rolling. Let me. I got to turn my music off real fast before I can introduce our first caller. So, well, it's interesting that you say you live in a bomb shelter. That's good.
I don't. But every home has a bomb shelter built into it.
Oh.
And this room is my bomb shelter.
Oh,
it really
I got
is
you.
A bomb shelter. It's a rocket-proof room.
Gotcha.
Actually, even poison gas can't come here.
That is really, really neat. Holy cow.
This studio is in a bomb shelter, literally.
How about that?
So, because if I
yeah,
mess up on air and someone decides to shoot a Katyusha at me, it's not going to go.
Right. That's so cool. Wow. That's cool.
That's right.
I built a I guess you could call it a safe room. I didn't build the room itself, but I actually built it out from inside, and it was pretty cool. I had to build a cabinet door over the top. It's not that type of a safe room, but it was one. You know, it's got the hidden room where you move the bookcase out, and it's there. It's pretty cool.
Not one that I would want to rely on. If
No, not at all.
Me, I wouldn't want to rely on the building wall safe room.
That's funny. Yeah, you're right. At least you'd have some books to read.
I'm just getting nervous as you're saying that. William Hall went on YouTube and found and found an instruction how to make a bomb-proof room. Okay. Anyway, let us continue.
Oh my. Okay, good deal. We'll go ahead and move on forward then.
So I was just having a panic. Let me take this out. That's better. Okay.
So, callers, whenever you guys call in, be prepared to hold. Oftentimes, I see a lot of people, they'll hold for like 3 or 4 minutes and then they hang up. I guess maybe they don't think we're going to get to them, but as soon as Rabbi has finished talking about whatever it is he talks about, which could. Hey, the longest one you ever did, I think it was like 38 minutes or 40 minutes or something like that.
Really?
But it was that was an intense one though. It was good. Yeah, and most of the census, they would much rather have long, detailed answers than the quick snippets. I mean, I hear that a lot. I ask people all the time and most of them actually prefer the really great details. So, you know, it's definitely a good setup you got here. So. Okay, all right. Well, callers, the number will be on the screen in just a minute, but we already have a caller. Caller, welcome to the show. Please tell us your name and where you're calling from.
Hi, William. This is Malcolm Stein from Irvine, California. And the reason I'm calling is, where in the Tanakh does it say that the Messiah has to be perfect and of no sin? Where in the Tanakh does it say that the Messiah will be perfect like the Christians claim it says? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Awesome. You know, that's something I never got either. I mean, I just assumed because that's what you're
one
taught.
of a pile of things that William hasn't gotten yet, and that's in that large library.
In that safe room I built.
I'm kidding.
All right.
You're with it. We love you. Okay.
You're crazy.
Without you, the whole show is gone. No, it's all.
All right, take it away, Rabbi.
All right. So where does it say the Messiah will be perfect? It doesn't say, but the Navi, the prophets tell us that the Mashiach will be a tzaddik. I mean, that's very famous in Zechariah chapter 9:9, the verse everybody knows about, including the Christians, because it's in the Gospels. The Christians don't include Zechariah 9:10 for very good reason, but 9:9 is there, and the Torah says that Hine Malkech Yovoi Loch Tzaddik, he'll be a righteous person. But this is where we get into a little trouble, because Christians make two very critical mistakes in this area. And that is that Christians believe that once a righteous person sins, he can never be righteous any longer. And they also believe that a righteous person would never sin. But as it turns out, in Tanakh, there were many very righteous people, Abraham, the prophets, Daniel, and so on and so forth. So therefore, the Messiah, who is called David, will be like David. I mean, if you want to get a picture of Mashiach, look at David. And David made mistakes in his life. But although he made some very serious mistakes in his life, he repented for them. And the prophets considered him a righteous person. In fact, later kings who were righteous, let's take maybe certainly the last of the really great Davidic kings, the last great Davidic king, his name is Yoshiyahu. They call him Josiah. So it says in 2 Chronicles chapter 34, verse 2, that Josiah was so righteous. He was a very big tzaddik. He was a very holy man. He was a very great man. And it said that there hadn't been anyone righteous like him. He's like David, his father, who didn't go one way, didn't deviate from my commands. So here you see clear, I mean, this really should be like a bomb going off for Christians who are paying attention. So here you see a person who sinned. David made a terrible mistake in his life. In 2 Samuel chapter 12, verse 13, he repented with two words, Chatasi Lashem, which means I've sinned before the Lord. And the prophet Nathan said, the Lord has already forgiven you. And then every future righteous king would be compared to King David, who was righteous. But doesn't mean that King David never made a mistake in his life. The point is that King David turned back to Hashem and repented. And when he repented, there was no sacrifice brought. And King David would make a point of that in Psalm 51, in Psalm 40, verse 6 and 7, or 7 and 8 in the Christian Bible, where King David said, sacrifices and offerings you don't desire, but my ears you have opened for me, burnt offerings, sin offerings, you have not required. The book of Hebrews is going to famously manipulate that text to make it appear Christological, changing my ears to a body you have prepared for me. Moreover, we're told a lot about the Messiah in the book of Ezekiel, a lot about the Mashiach. Now, Mashiach is not called the Mashiach in Tanakh. He's called a few things. The big one is he's called the Prince, David. These are the names that he's given in Tanakh. The term Mashiach, speaking about the Mashiach without modification, is a post-biblical term. It's not that the Messiah will not be anointed. He will, as a Davidic king. But that's not the term that Tanakh uses. But we find that, in fact, the prince himself is going to commit unintentional sins. We know that because we see in the Messianic temple, specifically in Ezekiel 45, verse 20 and then 22, that he's going to bring a sin offering on behalf of himself and his people. Now if that doesn't make people go, wow, then I don't know what would. Now, the text very specifically says that he's bringing this offering for sins that are committed b'shogeg, unintentionally, pesi, like just not being careful. And there was an offering for people who just made a mistake. It doesn't mean an accident. It means just not being careful enough. So there it says exclusively, but the Mashiach, who we wait for and please God, he'll come very soon in our time. I believe we're living in that messianic moment now. The Mashiach is certainly a tzaddik, a very, very righteous person, a very holy person, who's going to judge people, but not after the sight of his eyes, but the Spirit of Hashem that will be upon him. See Isaiah chapter 11, specifically verse 2 and 3. And these passages of what we're describing here are uncontroversial. It means all Christians agree that Ezekiel chapter 37, 24, and 25 are speaking about the Messiah. All Christians agree that Isaiah 11 is all about the Messiah. And 2 and 3 tells that the Messiah will fear God. So we're dealing with a very special person here. But will he never have made a mistake? No. I mean, I can add to this just a caveat, and that is, I've got to do this, even though I'm just, in the Christian model, the Messiah, Jesus, is born of a virgin and can't do anything wrong anyway because he is God. So, like, what's the big deal that he never sinned? It doesn't even make sense. Like, if I was the second person of the triune Godhead, born a virgin in the whole mythology, I never sin either. The trick is to genuinely be tempted. Now, I know in Hebrews it says, but Christians believe that Jesus could never have found himself, drunk in a bar that he really should have never gone into. I mean, they don't. But if you are God, so what? The key is to be a man like Abraham, to be a man like Daniel, who was tempted. Both of them were. And Abraham, God would call my friend because he succeeded. Daniel had everything going for him. And then he winds up being second command in Babylon at a very young age. He was a teenager. And God called him Chamud, my beloved. So that's the key. So the answer is Mashiach is a tzaddik for sure. It says so in the Navi. But that doesn't, but righteous people can sin, and doesn't mean they're not righteous anymore if they repent. It's a great thing to repent. Anyways, thank you for your question.
All right, very good, very good. Great answer, too. Caller, you are live on the air. Please tell us your name, where you're calling from.
Hey, good morning, William. Good morning, Rabbi. This is Rudy calling from Edmonton, Alberta.
Rudy, welcome back.
Thank you. So I have a question and maybe clarification. Hopefully I don't make it too convoluted.
Me too.
Me too, yeah.
I'm really davening, please. Don't make it complicated. Go easy on me, Rudy. I know you're in Alberta. I know it's crazy cold there right now, and you have nothing to do but stay inside and just think. So go for it.
Read.
Go easy.
So we're reading because of Purim. We were reading the book of Esther, right?
Okay.
And in Isaiah, it talks about Cyrus, my anointed one, my Mashiach.
Yes.
And there's also a reference in Daniel about this. But in Purim, they say that Queen Esther had one child with Ahasuerus, and it's believed to be Darius, who gave the order to rebuild the temple. So was it in fact my Mashiach? He was a Jewish man that ruled over the kingdom of Persia and Media, that gave the orders to build the temple. So because Esther is a Jewish, son would have been a Jewish man, right? Is that right, or am I out of this?
You're totally wrong. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm kidding. No, you're doing great. I don't know what it is. Block his number, this guy. Bothers me. No, it's a brilliant question. Thank you. No, I'm glad you called in.
Okay.
I can answer you with you on air, but...
we'll go ahead and free up this phone lines.
Oh,
you want him on?
Thank you.
Yep.
No, it's all right. It's all right.
Rudy, thank you. Go ahead and hang up now. Tune in for your answer. Appreciate you. Yeah, bye.
Bye.
All right, go ahead, Rabbi. You're crazy.
But this is why I bring in the big bucks. So that's it. You'll be making safe rooms.
Oh,
again.
my. You're funny.
You'll be making mop sticks. You'll be a nice tech con.
Too late.
All right. So the answer is these are two different people. They're both are Persians. The first one is Cyrus, who's called the Mashiach. He's not Darius. Cyrus was the great king and the first king of the Persian Empire, who, after 50 years from the destruction of the first temple, emerges. He has a text in front of him. I urge you to read his speech. The book of Ezra opens with Cyrus's speech. This is really so good. So I just for a moment, he says, God revealed to me that to give this command. What do you mean God revealed to Cyrus? Cyrus is likely a pagan. But he had Isaiah. This is why the people who question the historicity of Isaiah, the authorship of Isaiah, they don't realize you can do the kicking the stool out of history. Cyrus was not a Navi, was not a prophet, but he had Isaiah, which was written during the Assyrian Empire, which means not quite 2 centuries earlier. So that's one person. So Cyrus gives the command for the Jews to go back to Israel and to rebuild Jerusalem. But Cyrus only reigns for a few years and then he's gone. And there's a series of Persian kings. You have to go through the book of Nehemiah for this. You ultimately are going to get to Darius II, who's a Persian. So there's quite a few Dariuses going on. These names, incidentally, are royal names, like Caesar, like Cleopatra. There's a lot of people with that, like Pharaoh. That's not their real name. So Darius II was a Jew in Jewish law because his mother was Esther. His father was not Jewish. The Persians regarded the patrilineal descent, the ancestry that determined your national identity. Therefore, from the Persians' view, he was a child of Achashverosh, and therefore he was royalty. The Jewish part wasn't important. From our viewpoint, which is the one that matters, he has a Jewish mother, and that means that he's Jewish. I don't think he was a religious person. And I thought often about the anguish that Esther had, that her son likely was not a religious Jew, and her son would be the one who would say, you can go build the temple. But having that kind of son, that must have been something that she really struggled with. But that was a very big deal, because you have Cyrus, who gives her the command to rebuild Yerushalayim. This is what that whole book of Nehemiah is about. It's not the only book, but that's really what it's about. And then the Persians renege because there's pressure coming from all over the place, from what is today Jordan, what's from the Samaritans. Don't ask. We have problems all over. I know it's unimaginable to you that Jews should have problems. We had big problems. So the building project began with 42,360 Jews. It's then halted. The event of Purim actually occurs in between these two. Between Cyrus and Darius II is when Purim takes place. It's in between. And the crazy thing is that the Jews, when they went to the banquet of Achashverosh, there was a temple that already was being built in Jerusalem that was halted. And they went in the exact wrong direction. They went east instead of west. That's why this is such a big deal. The Jews went in the wrong direction, and they went to enjoy a banquet where Achashverosh was celebrating the destruction of the temple and his miscalculation of its destruction. I'm not going to go into it now. Idiots, Jews, go to Jerusalem. Don't go to Achashverosh. For them, it was go west, don't go east. So that's the amazing part of Purim, which no one gets, and that is when the events of Purim took place, the Jerusalem was partially built, the temple was partially built, and then it was halted. You should never have been going in that direction. You should have been going in the other direction. And therefore, we went through all this turmoil, and we're likely going through that right now as well. So that's a really great question. Thank you for calling in.
All right, very good. We'll move on to the next caller. Caller, you're live on the air. Please tell us your name, where you're calling from. Hello, you're live.
Hi.
Welcome.
This is Yehudi Israel from Ohio.
Welcome.
Yeah, I'm calling. I called in last week, or I attempted to ask about a passage, Zechariah 3:8, where it speaks about the Tzemach. Somebody who I had a debate with, was Courtney on the show. I wanted to get some clarity on this. She was trying to argue that you said in a lecture that the word Tzemach exclusively refers to the Messiah, and I said you must be mistaken, because Tovia's singer, I know for a fact, would recognize that it refers to Zerubbabel in the immediate context, and then the Messiah ultimately. And I just wanted to set the record straight for everybody, so that everybody understands that Tovia Singer does not understand that Tzemach is exclusive to the Messiah, although you do correctly, obviously say that all 5 times that it's used, it does refer to the Messiah, but not exclusively. So I just wanted to give you the opportunity to clarify that on the air so that nothing is misrepresented.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure, absolutely. Great.
Well, thanks for calling in. Appreciate that.
Thanks.
Okay.
I think the word Tzemach is used in Tanakh 8 times.
Okay.
Anyway, so as it turns out, you're completely wrong. No, you're right. You actually nailed it. You did it so well that I'm a little nervous, because William might fire me and hire you. That's
funny.
He can get away with minimum wage with you. So as it turns out, Zechariah 3 verse 8 is speaking about Zerubbabel. Zerubbabel was one of 2 leaders of the Second Commonwealth. He, along with Yoshua ben Yehotzadok, who's the nephew of Ezra. So that's what he's speaking about in the immediate moment. And the reason why it's so important for this to be in the book of Zechariah, because when is Zechariah written? It's written during the Persian Empire. It's written at the time of the building of the Second Temple. There are only 3 prophets like that. You only have Zechariah, Haggai, and Malachi. That's it. And what would you be really nervous about if you were a Jew living in Eretz Yisrael, in the land of Israel, in the beginning, in the Persian Empire? It's not the beginning, but in the Persian Empire. And what are you frightened about? Well, you're really frightened because the temple that's going up doesn't look anywhere near like Solomon's temple. It doesn't seem to have the glory of Solomon's temple. And Zerubbabel was a governor, but he wasn't a king. He was given great authority, but he just wasn't a king. So this would make you very, very nervous. And this doesn't only come up in Zechariah. This is why, my friends, it's so important to understand the history of these prophets when they lived, so you enjoy the full force of what they're saying and why it is so meaningful, not only to them, but to the future. And what your secondary comment was brilliant, and you're right on the money. And the secondary point is, if Zerubbabel is saved, if he's preserved, and he's made a pachas, he's made a governor, so that means the Davidic dynasty is preserved, which means Mashiach is possible. And they are both branches of the root of Jesse, Isaiah chapter 11, verse 1. And why are they called branch? Like, what is branch? Like sprout? That's what the word really means. But why branch? Well, God made a promise to King David, 2 Samuel 7, 12 through 16. Nothing could happen to your dynasty. It comes out of Jesse, out of Yishai, out of David, out of Shlomo, the one who builds the temple. It's all right there in the text. Okay. Now, but what happens is you have a huge dynasty, a Davidic dynasty. So many people emerge out of this dynasty. I have friends who are from the house of David, quite a few. So this is now the point is, in every generation, there has to be a kind of a Zerubbabel figure, meaning someone from the Davidic dynasty, someone who is from King Solomon, someone who's ready to step forward to be the Messiah if the generation would have deserved it. The generation at the time might have gotten the Messiah, but they didn't. Why not? Because of what I said earlier. That number 42,360, that's all. That's all the Jews that came back from Babylon out of probably millions, maybe 2 million Jews in Babylon. We don't know. But it was a tiny number. And as a result, it didn't happen. It could have happened, but it didn't happen. That's why you needed prophets. Why did you need these 3 prophets in the beginning of the second time period? Because if, in fact, Mashiach would have come, you need prophets. And to build a temple, you need prophets. But to get points, so in the immediate point is that it's referring to Zerubbabel, who's a direct descendant of King David and King Solomon. And of course, in the larger picture, it's speaking about Mashiach, meaning the preservation of the Davidic dynasty to that final branch who is going to usher in the redemption and fulfill the promises made in the Navi earlier. So thank you for that question.
Right on. We had a caller and they just hung up right when I answered it. So, okay, wow. Well, guys, if you don't have Rabbi Singer's books, definitely you want to get there to outreachjudaism.org and also click on the free audio tab at the top. Caller, you're live on the air. Please tell us your name, where you're calling from. Caller, you're live on the air. We'll wait for it. A moment of silence, please. Caller, you're live. Can you hear us? Hello, hello, hello. All right.
Hello?
Yeah, there you go. We can hear you now. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Thank you. Thank you for taking my call.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead with your question for Rabbi.
I know that voice.
My question is, during the Rosh Hashanah service, there is a prayer that mentions Yeshua Sar Hapanim, deciphering the Maksor prayer. The prayer that involves the name of Yeshua, it mentions the memory of Elijah and Yeshua. Why the name of Yeshua is mentioned there? I want to understand it, please. Thank you, Rabbi Tovia, and really.
Yes, thank you so much.
That's my question.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much. You can tune in, hang up and tune in now. Thanks. Okay,
right.
Rabbi.
So, as it turns out, Yeshua is a really great name. And we're kind of sorry it got hijacked by Christianity. But in fact, the first high priest of the Second Temple had that precise name. So therefore, you find the name Yeshua in the book of Isaiah as God's salvation. Hine El Yeshua Si, that God is my salvation. And we recite that at the Havdalah and when closing the Shabbat. So we are grateful for God's salvation, that he ushers in all this whole entire redemptive process, an angel who is ushers in the redemption of the Jewish people. Same angel that Joshua will encounter, this promise that the angel will go before you in the book of Exodus. So it is a great name, but the reason why Jesus is not the Messiah is not because his name, there's anything wrong with his name. His name, Yeshua or Yehoshua. Yeshua is probably a truncated version of Yehoshua. It actually certainly is. So it's a great name. The problem is he didn't fill any messianic prophecy, but we do await the redemption at the end that will be coming at the end of days and ushered in by Elijah the prophet, as foretold to us in the book of Malachi at the very, very end, last 5 passages. Thank you for your question.
So the name that they've used for Yeshua, you're saying it's actually a truncated version, most likely, of Yehoshua. So would that make Yeshua actually not really a name, but they tried to apply that as a name to Jesus? Is that what you're saying, kind of?
No. Okay. So Yeshua really is used in Tanakh.
But not for a person, right? I mean, not for...
No, for a person.
Okay.
It is.
Okay.
In fact, the name Yehoshua, it would be the rough equivalent of the name Joshua versus Josh.
Right.
It really is the same name. And it's used interchangeably in Tanakh.
Okay, very good.
The name is terrific. And where they come up with the name Yeshua versus Yehoshua, that's not in the New Testament. It is, I don't want to get complicated, but in the New Testament, you could show that his name was Yehoshua or Yeshua, something like that. At least, let's say in Matthew's view, because Matthew says you should call his name Jesus, for he'll save his people from his sins. That's Matthew 1:21, 22, 23. So it was something like that. But that doesn't make him the Messiah, because a lot of there are shortstops with that name.
Good point.
First base.
That's funny. That's funny. Very good.
Be named Jesus and play catcher. I mean, anyway, yeah.
That's funny. Okay. All right, we'll take this next caller. You're live on the air. Please tell us your name and where you're calling from.
Hi, this is David in Maryland.
Welcome, David.
Thank you. I had a quick question about Saul, and it sounded, I can't remember the exact part, but that he seemed to have an outing with God, and when he went to try to, he went to that woman in Endor and tried to reach Samuel, and I just felt that it was a little strange that humans, a woman, or whatever, could actually reach out into the realm of death. That seems something that only God could do. And I feel like Saul went behind God's back for this. So is there something you can explain to how was this possible?
Right.
Okay. Thank you so much for David.
Question.
Hang up now. You can tune in for the answer. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. I don't think we've ever discussed that.
Oh. So, I lived in the Far East for quite a number of years, and I saw many of these people who could, it's like you see the storefronts, people who can speak to the dead, I'm pretty sure that that's all chicanery and hoaxes. I think that they're all just like card readers. I don't believe that stuff. But as it turns out, there is a way to encounter the dead, to speak to the dead, but it's just forbidden in the Bible. See Deuteronomy chapter 18. It's forbidden for a Jew or for a Gentile. It's the forbidden act. So this is a very dark moment in King Saul's life. The end of his life was a dark moment. So what we have is, it can be done, but like a lot of things that you can do, but it's a forbidden practice. And it's unfortunate that happened. That was, the context is unfortunate. And I wanted to just share with you that, King Saul was struggling with sadness that overwhelmed him, with a sense of feeling lethargic. And when you're in that position, so then the spirit of Hashem just can't rest upon you. Just can't. So the answer in short is that it is a practice that can be done, and those who study Jewish literature, it's spelt out. We kind of know how to do it. Wouldn't dare do it, but it's forbidden. The reason why we would know even how to do it is because you have to know what practices are forbidden, because all the ancillary elements of that practice of speaking to the dead, and more interestingly, have the dead speak back to you, it's all of that is prohibited, is absolutely forbidden. As I said, I think that what's going on around us, that we see these, I forgot what they call them, these people who speak to that, I think that stuff is just fake. But there is a way to do it, and it's just a absolutely forbidden practice. So it could have been done, and not only God can do it, but it could have been done, and it's forbidden to do. And it's a great man, Saul, the end of his life, took some turns that were unfortunate. We still consider him a great man, but be careful about your self-esteem. When you're feeling down, when you're feeling depressed, it's impossible really to be fully, properly connected to God.
Okay. All right. Good answer. Bye-bye. All right. There's no callers on the line. Well, just as soon as I say that, we get a caller. Very nice. Caller, you're live on the air. Please tell us your name, where you're calling from.
Hello?
Yes, you're live on the air.
Yeah. Hi. My name is Steve. I'm calling from Pennsylvania.
Welcome, Steve.
And thank you very much. I appreciate everything all of you do. I just recently found out that through my father's lineage that I am a Levi. And I wanted to know if it was true that the Levites did not sin with the golden calf, and that they were the smallest of the tribes. And currently, I think it says that there's only about 4% of Jews are through the Levites. Just the basic question about that.
Fair enough. Okay, we'll go ahead and hang up now. You can tune in for your answer. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, Rabbi, go ahead.
What a great question. Yeah. And you should learn the laws of being from the tribe of Levi. Not sure if you're a descendant of Moses or a descendant of Aaron, but if you're from that tribe, you should prepare yourself for the coming of Mashiach. So I'll add another thing that they didn't. So they didn't participate in the sin of the golden calf. They were the smallest tribe. But why were they the smallest tribe? Because they weren't in the shibud of Mitzrayim. They weren't enslaved in Egypt. And therefore, the blessing that was given to Jewish women, that they would have many, many children, they didn't get. And as a result of that, if you look at the book of Numbers, you'll see that it's the tiniest of all the tribes. I don't know the percentage. I just don't know the percentage of Jews who are from the tribe of Levi today. I'm sure there must be some literature. There should be a lot of literature on that, because there's been a great deal of study of the Y chromosome of people who are from sons of Aaron, who are from the tribe of Levi. Because as you would imagine, if your father's 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 father is Aaron or Moses, that means you would expect to find a unique marker on the Y chromosome of people who are from the tribe of Levi. Now, Kohanim, priests, sons of Aaron, are just much more likely to be aware that they're Kohanim, because there's so many laws today that apply to priests that don't apply to Levium, descendants of Moses. But so I don't know the percentage, but the science is there. It was done. The science initially began at the University of New Mexico, and it's extensive. So yeah, it's the smallest tribe, and they didn't participate in the sin of the golden calf. That's correct. Yeah, I can go further, but anyways, that's a very interesting question. Thank you.
Okay, very good. All right, we'll move on to the next caller. Caller, you live on the air. Please tell us your name, where you're calling from.
Hello?
Yes, you're live on the air. Welcome to the show.
Oh, hi. How are you guys doing?
Doing great. What's the question for you?
Thank you very much. My name is Mohammed. I'm just calling about there's these new posts that are coming out on YouTube, and they're from a group called One with Israel, or One Israel, or something like that.
Okay.
Now, I've noticed that they've been bringing some, bringing some of their points and trying to do a rebuttal towards the rabbinical evidence against, the New Testament. So I just wanted to know, is there, did Rabbi Tovia, if you have done any rebuttals against them, or did you discuss anything about them in certain ways? That's what I just wanted to ask.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I believe so. So, yeah, if you want to go and hang up now, you can.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Is that the same one that you dealt with already? One with Israel or One for Israel? Is it the same group, I wonder?
So there is One for Israel. It's just it's a regurgitation of the same thing over and over again, and it traces itself back to the Christian Bible itself, that the Jews are involved in some sort of mass world conspiracy, and the rabbis are lying. It's the kind of stuff that you can weave the protocols of the elders of Zion. And I am repeatedly responding. That's a group I don't like personally, but I'm responding to these arguments without dealing with a specific group or a specific missionary. I'm always responding to the conspiracy theories that our good friends, the missionaries, have about the Jews. And in every program, answering, because sometimes they're levying some very, very serious charges against the Jewish people, and we're used to that throughout history. The nations of the world have accused us of the worst things in the world, and it's understandable why Christians would think that way. They're not evil people. It's just when what you've got going in your head is the passion narratives, and the passion narratives are going on that, like, the Jewish leaders are trying to get Jesus killed, and once they find out he resurrected, they're trying to bribe Roman soldiers. So there's this whole plot that the Jews just were awful right from the get-go. You don't even have to go to the passion narratives. You can go to the infancy narratives. In Matthew, the Persian Magi, non-Jews, they're worshiping Jesus. They love Jesus. They're crazy about Jesus. While the king of the Jews, Herod the Great, wants to kill the little boy by wiping out every child born in Bethlehem. Now, that story never happened. It's all nonsense. But the point is, it's right from the get-go. Let's just show how the Jews are these conspiring, evil, malevolent people who ultimately killed God. Like, that's pretty much I would think that's worse than jaywalking. It's not a good thing. And we're so sick and depraved that we even know it, and we're hiding it, and we hide Isaiah 53 from our Bibles. There are people who write to me and tell me that missionaries tell them, different groups, I don't even know, that we don't, in our Bibles, there is no Isaiah 53, that we just take it out. Or we skip it in the Haftorah, and so on. So I respond. It's not that group, it's any group that levels these very serious charges against the Jewish people. I respond to it right away. Those who watch me a long time know that I stay away from names of groups, because it's not about that group has a bunch of really bad faith actors, and there are some groups that are really pretty bad out there. But I don't want people to think that way. I want people to think, what does the Bible say? What does history say? What's the truth? Let's open that up. These are very serious charges, and we got to respond to them. So you notice my style is to deal with ideas, not. And when I say that I really care about Christians, those who watch me for a long time know that I'm not trying to, patronize them. I'm clearly unfiltered in my criticism of the Christian religion. It's very clear that I'm very sincere about this, because I don't want Jews to think about the Christians the way missionaries try to get Christians to think about the Jews. I don't want them to do that. I want them to understand that they're just amped up on all this literature, and it's not a genetic thing. And if all I was reading was the New Testament, all I was reading was the Gospels, I would hate me too. And I would think of all these mad things which a sober mind ordinarily would never be able to believe, never be able to accept. But thank you for asking.
Very good. All right, we'll move on to the next caller. You're live on the air. Please tell us your name, where you're calling from.
Hey, hello, William. This is Rudy again.
Hey, Rudy. Yes.
I noticed there were no calls, so I thought I'd call in with another question.
Sure, go ahead.
And I hope Rabbi won't...
He just likes the abuse. Go ahead.
I hope you're not abused me too much on this question. So, the book of Job, I have read it maybe 2 or 3 times in my life, and the last time I've read it...
Hey, Rudy, do me a favor. Kind of stabilize your phone. It's real tin canny, and then it gets really bassy.
Okay, how's that?
We'll try that, and let's see how that works.
So, the last time I read
that's not working.
Wait, put it to your mouth there, right there. Did you pay your bill?
How about that?
That's way better.
Get some cheap cell phone service. All right, there we go.
Okay, so when I was reading Job, the sages have Rashi and other commentators don't know if it was an actual fact that the man lived, or was it a parable, a mashal? And there's different commentaries on different things, when it could have been. Could have been during Purim, could have been during the time of Moses, could it have been other times in the history of the Jews. I was wondering, has any sages ever thought that the life of Job parallels the life of the Jew in many ways? God said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job? God calls the Israelites his servants. Satan responds that he's been hedged in. God had the Jewish people hedged in by a pillar of fire and by a cloud. And then at the end, he vindicates them. All his friends say, oh, you have sinned, much like the Jews have been told by the Christians, you have many sins, you have killed Jesus, and that's why you're suffering. And then at the end, God vindicates Job, restores him, and much what he will do with the Jewish people, at the end he will restore and vindicate the Jews and restore them to the place where they belong in a righteous, with Mashiach and the temple. Has any sages ever thought any of this?
Wow, that was a great question.
All right,
thank you.
Rudy.
I waited how many years? We're on for 6 years? No one ever asked that question.
Very good. All right, Rudy, go ahead and hang up now. Thanks, bud. Bye. All right, go ahead.
That's a question I've waited. Did anyone ever ask that question before? No.
I haven't, not on the show, right?
And I think about it a lot. It's in my mind a lot. So this is so interesting about who is Job. So conventionally, it is thought, for very good reason, that Job was a Ben Noach. He wasn't Jewish, for sure. And the book of Job is the oldest book in Scripture. It even predates the Torah. It's not difficult to figure it out, because the things that made Job righteous was not keeping Shabbos and eating kosher. So that's easy to get, what I've just said now. Where things get very confusing for people is the Gemara, the Talmud in Bava Basra, which is our source it's our big source on 14 for authorship and time that the books of Tanakh are written. It's not our only source, but it's the big It's the big one. So if you read the Talmud is difficult to read, not because it's written in Aramaic or using Hebrew characters, or because there's no punctuation. This is the largest work of antiquity that we have. I mean, this is huge, right? There's no question mark. There's no, I mean, just goes. But what's really difficult about the Talmud as well is it's like trying to read a prescription that your doctor wrote and you can't even make out what he's writing because there's just so many missing thoughts. Because the contributors to the Talmud was on such a high level that they just presuppose that you knew all these things. Like if you ever go on YouTube and you want to watch a physics class, a quantum mechanics class from MIT, you can do that. You can watch a professor at MIT give a class in quantum physics, right? And how long does it take, unless that's your field, but how long does it take for you to go, all right, I don't know what he's talking about? It's within seconds. Why? Because if you got into MIT, there's a presumption that you know all this stuff, because that's one of the premier universities for technology and the sciences and so on. So that's how the Talmud is written. It just presupposes that you know a lot, and that's why there's so many commentaries to expand. And I want to really, really run with this. It's really very beautiful. So the Talmud then asks the question, well, when did this person live? And the Talmud then points to a number of tukufot, which means a number of epochs that he might have lived. Did he live during the second Talmud period? Did he live during the first Talmud period? Did he live during the time of Pharaoh? Right? And then you're going, well, what do you mean? What is that? How could you be so off? How could you, so one thing, to ask the question, did he live during Darius the Mede, or did he live when Cyrus became king a few months later? Yehoiachim or Yehoiachin, and Yehoiachin's whole kingship was 3 months. This is just a ridiculous span of time. It's essentially every epoch. And then if that's not confused, so you're going, what do you mean? They don't know? What do you mean? What do you mean you don't know? And then if you don't think that's why, if your brain isn't spun enough, then the Talmud introduces a possibility that Eov lo hayav lo nivra, that Eov never existed. Oh, so then you're going, and this is why a teacher is so important, because without it, you just, almost any person would go, I give up. I just can't. This is either I'm too smart or too stupid. I can't follow this. But you just need a good teacher. What is being so that Job never existed, which means he always existed, and you are him. What the Talmud is conveying is that every single person, Jew and Gentile, is tested in his life. Every woman, Jew or Gentile, created in the image of God, she is tested. And you're going to be given some really, really bad advice in your life about God. You're going to be given advice in your life that you should turn your back on the God of Israel, that you should curse him as Job's wife did. You are going to be tested throughout your life. And the question is, will you be like Job? The Talmud is conveying that Job exists in all times, and the historical figure is not relevant because you're it. Job would not be an interesting book about a figure who just lived 3,300 years ago, who was very righteous. Everything was taken away from him. He had his friends, he had his wife, people all around him, giving them the most hideous advice. And it's like watching a Hitchcock movie, because you know that really bad stuff is going, but you know it. Like, Job, hang in there. And he does. Job is incidentally a book that's impossible in Christian theology, because Job is righteous at the end and all is restored. By what means? Because he was loyal to God. He won. You can do it. So I love your question because no one asks it. And it's and I waited all these years for that question. What the Talmud is conveying, he's in every epic, and the historical Job is not relevant because he is in everybody. Your Job, think about the pain you've endured in your life. Think about the time you wondered whether God listens to my prayers. Maybe you believe in God because it's just unacceptable not to believe in God, but I don't think he listens to me because there's no rhyme or reason for what I've gone through in my life, and so many things I hoped for didn't happen. Will you hang in there? One day it'll be restored. But could you hang in there? When you're told that there is no God, when you're instructed that by a professor at university, the book of Daniel is a forgery, and the book of Isaiah was written by multiple authors, and the 5 books of Moses was heavily redacted by multiple committees, will you continue to search, or will you go, you know what, I'm just so angry at my religion, I don't know if I can believe in God anymore? And that happens to me a lot. I have a lot of people who write to me who are ex-Christians, and when they realize that Christianity was a false religion, that the core tenets of the church were without merit, and they'd been lied to by their pastors and Bible teachers, it's very hard for them to trust again because they were poorly advised, and some of them can lose their faith, and that happens. And I know I've never said this, but I resent Christianity for robbing people of faith in God, because that's what happens to many people.
Right.
And it really hurts because it happens where I encounter it. And I don't want to hurt people's feelings. I'm very careful about that. But I'm really inside going, oh, what you, Paul, did, what you Christians did, was you destroyed these people because you gave them a false religion, a false representation of God. And then and then the Jews get hit by the curveball, and we're going, well, we had nothing to do with this. But for many ex-Christians, atheism and a deep hatred for Scripture will then persist. So to answer your question directly, the Talmud is saying that the book of Job is not a 3,300-year-old book, a history book about one man's dramatic life. If that's what you think it is, with a whole bunch of poetry and routine, then why is it in the Bible? Why is this important? Why? The answer is, you're Job. You're it. Don't give up hope. Hashem is there. Sometimes you don't see him, but Hashem is always there.
Right on, for sure.
Put your trust in him. That's it. So thank you for that question.
Awesome. All right. Well, Robert, how are you doing on time anyway?
We can go another question.
Okay. I may have to read one off. A caller just hung up again. Actually, I don't see any questions either. So maybe we'll just call it a show then. All right. Well, Rabbi, thank you so much for your.
You were very good in this show. Not like the other shows. This one you were good. The other shows not so much, but this one you really nailed it, and I'm proud of you. You really got this locked up, so I'm very proud of you. No, really, it was a great show.
Thank you. Very good.
All the viewers. And Rudy, great questions. Every question was great.
Definitely. Yeah, it was a great show, Rabbi. We'll see you next week. And just an early heads up, March 20th, that weekend, we have our family reunion in Oklahoma. Will not be on the air for any shows that weekend. So I think that's 3 weeks out, I believe, something like that. So
wait, say it again. There's no show next week?
No, March the 20th weekend, which is like 3 weeks out, I think. So, all righty. Okay, guys. Well, it's been fun. Rabbi, we'll see you soon. Shalom, everybody. And y'all have a great week. We'll talk to you later. Peace.